Hello, my name is Chris Sapola, and this is my analyzation of Dr. Keller's work, Dyslexia and Mindfulness. Can mental training ameliorate the symptoms of dyslexia? This dissertation was written by Julia Keller as her fulfillment of earning a PhD from the University of New Mexico. The dissertation structure section. The author uses the mixed method model to blend both the interviews of dyslexic students along with the statistical test achievement data to form a cohesive melded approach to her research. I too am using a mixed methods approach in my research, and it helped to look at how both the structure and examples of other dissertation can help me format my own. In this section, the topic and how it relates to my study. The aim of this study was to investigate whether training in metacognition strategies could help lessen the symptoms of dyslexia in children. The dissertation goes through the history as well as the characteristics of dyslexia, as does my research. Where our studies differ is that Dr. Keller's research looks at the cognitive strategies that impact a dyslexic academic skills, where my dissertation looks at the investigation at how social factors such as peer grouping, modeling, self-efficacy, and social structure relate to the key factors in implementing skills that provide the means for transcending academic barriers that the characteristics of dyslexia often create. Hi, this section is the APA citation section. I found looking at Dr. Keller's citations very helpful as I move forward in my own process of filling in the gaps of research that's lacking in my dissertation. The most interesting thing is how both my research as well as Dr. Keller's research shared some key impact sources that I'd like to share with you at this point. One was Bishop. Bishop used a mismatched negative to study central auditory processing in the development of language and literacy impairments. This specific citation both helped Dr. Keller and myself show what impairments dyslexic students do have. Cresswell and designing and creating both mixed methods research. Cresswell, as many people know, helps the dissertation process as far as the mixed method approach and show many examples of how to conduct such a research. Horner and O'Connor, helping becoming struggling readers develop self-regulated strategies. For Dr. Keller, this part showed what strategies a dyslexic student could use in their ability to cope with certain disabilities, as did I use the same citation in my research. Lovett and Borden, putting struggling readers on the fast track, a program to integrate strategy-based remedial reading instructions to maximize outcomes. In my research, I used these authors to show what strategies could be used as coping strategies as well as integrating in a classroom, and how it looked at peer grouping, modeling, and other structures that do occur in the classroom, and how it provides backup to my theoretical framework by Bandura. Hudson, Poulin, Lane, and Torrigen, the complex nature of reading fluency. This helped both of our research in the background, what debilitating academic learning disabled structures happen with both dyslexia and other learning disabilities. Maxwell and Delaney, designing examples of analyzing data. Again, both of our research looks at data and tries to pull both in qualitative and quantitative data, and these authors definitely help with that. Pennington and Welsh, neuropsychology and the development of psychopathology. Keller used this a little bit more than I did. In one of my sections, I pulled in what psychotherapy could be used with dyslexia. That was more of Keller's approach than my own, but we both did use it. Pennington and Welsh, Shaywitz and Shaywitz, a married couple who look at the functional disruption in the organization of the brain and reading in dyslexia. This was my background knowledge. A lot of Shaywitz and Shaywitz citations appear, and it shows what is the disease of dyslexia and how does it affect our youth and all the way to adulthood, really. Schwartz and Beagley, The Mind and the Brain. This looks at the scientific approach behind dyslexia and the neuropsychology of dis- the disability of dyslexia. Silverman doing qualitative research. I at first did not have Silverman in my paper. Um, through reading more and more dissertations besides Dr. Keller's, I see Silverman is a very viable citation to use as far as using qualitative data. Torgen, recent discoveries from research on remedial interventions for children with dyslexia. Looking at this citation, it pulls in a lot of examples as far as integrating certain interventions to help the dyslexic student achieve. Snowling and Hume, the science of reading. It looks at reading as a whole and different benchmarks in reading and where the dyslexic student fits within those benchmarks. And then finally, Yin. Yin looks at case study research, design, and methodology. Um, in both of our research, using the mixed methods approach, Yin definitely helps show how case studies could formulate data to help back up any and all facts that are brought up. This next section is the findings section. Dr. Keller's investigation into mindfulness training and the effect it had on dyslexia was very interesting. Her population group of 36 students underwent training to enhance the cognitive development of dyslexic in the youth. As a result, her findings showed that a constant mindfulness training regimen did in fact provide statistical data that dyslexic students would academically benefit from such training. However, this study also showed that the mindfulness training would need to remain constant throughout the dyslexic student's academic life to provide any and all results. The regression of skills would occur without this mindfulness training. So as students moved throughout their schooling, if they did not have a constant mindfulness training embedded into their scholastic academics, that they would not see the benefits of such training at all. The study also noted that the results differed in participants that were either solely dyslexic or dyslexic with another cornbread disorder such as ADHD. The results differed in those different. Solely dyslexic students did see far more benefits than did dyslexia plus another learning disability. This next section is the theoretical framework. The theoretical framework that Dr. Keller uses in her dissertation is the model of mindfulness. This theory looks at the psychological process of bringing one's own attention and mindfulness into the internal and external development that can be altered by practice and mediations or trainings. Dr. Keller uses this framework to provide an ample structural component to sustain her theory on how mindfulness training will impact the dyslexic learner's disabilities and provide a pathway to academic growth. Dr. Keller and my dissertation is similar in the respect that we're both looking at dyslexic students' achievements and what causes these achievements or their lack thereof. I have chosen to use Bandura's social learning theory as my theoretical framework to provide the social reasoning behind the high achieving academic student. Things I'm looking at is how does social learning such as peer grouping, modeling, self-efficacy transcend into the dyslexic students' learning so that they can become high achieving. In this section, I'm going to talk about what I found interesting. Through reading this dissertation, Dr. Keller's work on mindfulness and dyslexia, I found out that dyslexic students often had high anxiety through both schooling and tests and other academic ventures compared to their peers without learning disabilities. Reading problems became a stress and created a negative downward spiral for dyslexia. I know this all too well because I myself am dyslexic, but when you see it in writing and you see statistical data that just shows these dyslexic students and the stresses that they occur and how it just starts a downward spiral. And this paper definitely hit upon those facts. Students with learning disabilities have a high test anxiety, as do non-disabled children. Again, unfortunately, I know this too well, and throughout my schooling, tests have not been my shining moment, and it's not because I didn't know the subject. As you know, as Keller points out in her dissertation, the students that belong to her study often knew the subject, but it was because of the stress and anxiety that they just found themselves in a downward spiral of that ultimately affected their academics. Uh, which concludes, kind of the thing that I found most interesting was how stresses and anxiety levels of dyslexic students um, had on school and tests exacerbated the cognitive interference that children had with learning. And often dyslexic students aren't any less bright than traditional students. They're just having this anxiety and stress because of their disability, and it's not showing. Their true colors are not showing in their academic skills because so. And the next section is how does this dissertation that I chose relate to my own work? The dissertation that I chose was about mindfulness training and dyslexic achievement, and this relates to my topic through the learning disability of dyslexia. My dissertation looks at the phenomenological occurrence that dyslexics are being able to overcome academic barriers by the use of social learning, whereas the dissertation that I chose by Dr. Keller looks at metacognitive reasoning behind these academic successes. Both dissertations look at dyslexic achievement, just as different methods of obtaining this phenom of dyslexic achievement. Um, on one hand, does the dyslexic learner benefit from metacognition, or on the other hand, is it the social learning that provides the ample fuel for them to overcome these barriers? And that's how they relate. Conclusion. Through reading and analyzing Dr. Keller's dissertation, I can reference many of the citations she used that apply to my topic in high achieving dyslexics. By reading other professionals' work, students as myself can begin to see a larger picture and focus in the important parts of a dissertation that might be currently underdeveloped in their own or my own in this case, in their own investigation. Um, I love this assignment as far as looking and analyzing a dissertation that's already written, and I'll use this experience to positively impact my paper. Thus far, I've currently read a few, actually your own, Dr. Curtis, and I've looked at the different parts of the dissertation process and how to best impact my paper by taking the goods of so many wonderful examples that are out there. And hopefully one day a student will look at my paper and will look at analyzing my paper and pulling things out that they thought I did well. And it's a credit to you and NNU for providing these awesome experiences. And this is just another example of that. Thank you.